Thank you very much for the invitation and for the opportunity to have this discussion. I don't intend to speak about Buen Vivir from an activist perspective, but more about Buen Vivir from a philosophic perspective, because the topic is the meaning of life. So what is the meaning of life from a Buen Vivir perspective? And the Buen Vivir is, you can say, a vision, a cosmovision, a philosophy from indigenous people in the Andean region of South America. So, from their point of view, when we speak about life, we have to speak about space and time. Now, according to Buen Vivir, there is no space without time. They are both linked, always. And they have a very interesting phrase that says, let's walk with our backs toward the future and our eyes on the past so we can find our way to utopia. So when you go into the language of the indigenous people, the future is in the past. We are already living the future because what we are doing is already part of the future. We are building the future. So the sense of time is different. It's not we are here and the future is going to come. No, the future has already come because what we have already done has already in some way determined the future. So it has this approach in terms of space and time, and this will be expressed very much in the language. A second key issue from the perspective of Buen Vivir is that there is no dichotomy. There is no heaven and earth. There is no good and evil as something that are very two sides, very contradictory. No. Everything has contradictions. And life is to live in contradictions. So it's very different than a Western approach where you want to see what is the truth, what is not the truth. From the Buen Vivir perspective, that means that you're going to go into a definition that is very absolute. And everything is relative and has contradictions. Life and death are both part of the same. So you have to learn to live, that means you have to learn to die. And death is a moment of life, and you cannot understand life without death. And we very much highlight, for example, the fact that the Buen Vivir has a very communitary approach. It promotes communities. You can only be a citizen, a person, if you're part of a community. There is no person as such if that person has not fulfilled its duties in relation to the community. So first you have to be part of the community in order to be you. The verb interbe. So it's not to be or not to be, is we all have to interbe with others. And in this vision, even though the community is so important, the individual doesn't disappear. there will always be a contradiction between the community and the individual. And that is part of the contradictions of life. So, Buen Vivir doesn't have an approach that everything has to be managed in a very collective way and everybody has to have the same. No, that will not happen according to Buen Vivir. There are always going to be differences. The key thing is how we're going to be able to reestablish the balance between the differences inside a community. So this brings us to a different concept from the way the Buen Vivir frames life. Is what is the purpose of life? To seek balance, to seek equilibrium, to seek harmony. From the concept of Buen Vivir, the perspective of life cannot be to be better, to improve yourself always, to grow, to be more. The purpose of life has to be to address these permanent contradictions that life has in relation to other humans and in relation to nature. And to seek balance with humans and with nature. So, of course, this is a very different concept than the concept of Western civilization. That is more, you are more, you have to grow, no? You have to have more than the other. No, how you're going to have balance. And if you have more, how you're going to have to share that at a certain point with the others. And also how the community is going to establish ways to share, to provide or to develop mechanisms of sharing, of complementarity. So, in the Buen Vivir perspective, we are not all the same. We're different, but we live in a community. And we have to think of us not only from a human perspective. I would say this is probably one of the key aspects of the Buen Vivir, is it's not anthropocentric. So life cannot be understood as life of humans. Life has to be always understood as life of all, which includes nature. From the Buen Vivir perspective, if we're going to be true to the philosophy of Buen Vivir, nature doesn't exist. Nature is a creation from the Western society to divide humans from nature. So the concept of nature has been created in order to say, this is nature, we are humans. In the language of indigenous people, that division doesn't exist. It's not something that we even can think of it. We are nature, nature is us. So when we think of life, we have to think of life of the whole. So this is another key perspective of Buen Vivir. And therefore, in the sense of Buen Vivir, we have to look at all the aspects of life. So it's more based on the integrality of life than on the material part of life. So who lives, who has really had a plentiful life, who has danced, who has eaten well, who has done his duties for the community, who has taken care of nature, of the elder. All of these aspects are key to define a plentiful life, a meaningful life. In Buen Vivir, there isn't the concept that we have, and I can also say that I have it, is oh, I have this purpose in life and I'm going to do this for the others, and you know, I'm going to sacrifice myself for the utopia. No, 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 no. It's, you have to learn life in all its context and meaning. And you have also to learn to die. To accept that everything has a time. Nothing grows forever. That's why the concept of growth and development doesn't really match with buen vivir. Because you cannot develop forever, you cannot grow forever. Who thinks that? But that's the belief of Western society. We can develop, we have to be better, we have to grow. And from buen vivir perspective, that is not possible. And we should, on the contrary, seek for balance, for equilibrium. So when we have discussions, for example, in relation to the GDP, everybody will agree that the GDP is very bad. It doesn't take into account really what we have to take into account. It only focuses on the commodities that go into the market. And there are many that say, hey, we have to have a green GDP, human indicators for a GDP, and so on. But from the perspective of buen vivir, the fact to try to measure progress or advance or development is in itself something that you must not pursue. If you have to measure something, you have to measure how a society seeks balance and equilibrium, not how the society is more developed, better, has grown, and so on. From the perspective of buen vivir, the key concept is complementarity. It's not solidarity, there is solidarity, but it's complementarity. So we are all different, but we live in a community, so how we are going to complement each other with our differences? Because that's the only way we can all, with Mother Earth, live together. And from the perspective of buen vivir, we, in a way, are all colonized. So it's not the indigenous people that are colonized. We are all colonized. Indians are colonized. Even now, Thais are colonized. Americans are colonized. Europeans are colonized. Because our beliefs, our ideas have been created by external forces. What we like, what we choose, is not really what we want. It's what media, family, education creates in us as images of what we want. But if we want to find our way, we all have to decolonize. So the concept of decolonization, from the buen vivir perspective, is not something for those that are colonized in the traditional way, like you would say indigenous people, but everybody. And if we want to find this new, find buen vivir, we have to decolonize ourselves and go beyond the ideas that we have been receiving all of this time. This is one of the key aspects of buen vivir. From a buen vivir perspective, speaking about the philosophy of buen vivir, if we look at the dimension of time and space, we have to see that everything will move in cycles. So history is not a line that goes like this or goes like this. Time and space are more like a spiral. And there are cycles that don't repeat. It's not a circle, a closed circle that goes round and round. No, it's a spiral. And at some point, we're going to go back to previous cycles. But they will not be the same as what they were before. So, in indigenous perspectives, they look at the long cycles and the short cycles. Long cycles, 500 years, what is happening? What is happening with civilization? From a buen vivir perspective, what we're seeing is the end of the Western civilization. It's going to die. It's already dead, you would say, from a buen vivir perspective, because what already they have done has already decided or defined their future. So, Western civilization, which we have copied, is dying and will be dead. The key question is, what kind of civilization will emerge? And how? There's a term in buen vivir in indigenous language called pachacuti. We're going to begin a new cycle that will be a new challenge for indigenous communities, but for humanity as such. And we're in this moment. And what will happen will define what is going to be the future of life. You will find some indigenous communities that will tell you, maybe we will not exist anymore as humans because of what we have done to Mother Earth, to nature. We're going to have to exist as something different. So, and we have to accept those things. To finalize, I want to emphasize on one thing. Don't believe that buen vivir thinks that you can find harmony and harmony forever. In the sense of buen vivir, harmony is just a moment. There will be always a break in that equilibrium, and you will need to seek again a new moment of balance, of harmony. So it's always dynamic. And life is that. And it is the greatest meaning of life is to seek that. And probably, in order to achieve that, there are things that you have to do that will be sometimes more towards this side than towards this other side. Balance, you will not find it just with one measure like this. Balance, you will always find it like this. And that is part of life. Thank you very much.